All right, go for it.
I'd like to welcome each of you to another school year here at California Baptist University in the Department of Aviation Science. This is the start of our third year, and even our inaugural class will be starting their junior year this fall, so it's an exciting time. We're continuing to grow. We're expecting about 70 students in our three majors this fall. So welcome to the new students and as well as the returning students. I'd like to take this opportunity really just to share with you some wisdom, I guess, from my life experiences. One of the problems I have learned in life is just deciding what to do next and where to go and what career path to choose and which job to apply for and those sort of things. And, I found Christ when I was 12 years old at a revival at a small Baptist church in rural Mississippi. But honestly, not a whole lot changed after that. I guess I was a pretty good kid, anyways. But got into high school and continued. It almost as if I felt like nothing had really changed. And my junior year of high school, we had a evangelist come speak actually at our high school. He had written a book on satanic worship and suicide and that sort of stuff, which really caught your attention. It was like, well, what's this all about, right? So listen to him and really felt God tugging at my heart yet again, and even in a stronger way now that I was about 17. So I actually rededicated my life to Christ my junior year of high school, and at that point I realized that it's not so much the feeling or I guess the immediate transformation, if you will, but it's a concerted effort on my part. It's a decision that I make on a daily basis to live for Christ. So I encourage each of you, if you've not made that decision, speak to one of us. Christ really lived the perfect life and paid the ultimate sacrifice for us, and actually paid the sacrifice that we should be paying for the sins that we've committed. So as I decided on a career path, I had actually started flying when I was a senior in high school. You look up at the sky, you see these planes, and I'm kind of like, well, how hard is that? I wonder what it's like to fly an airplane. So talked my parents into paying for flying lessons at Hawkins Field in Jackson, Mississippi, little Cessna 150. That was my first ride, and I was like, this is pretty cool. I found a Gleim test prep book for the private written and really just devoured that, just learning about navigation and airspace and, all the laws and regs associated with flight. Really just, I really just, it was something that I found that I could really sink my teeth into and learn to do something to improve myself, and so I continued with the flight training while I was a senior in high school, and I actually earned my private pilot certificate before I graduated high school, which was the talk of the town in little Brandon, Mississippi. I made it on the front page of the Rankin County News. Here's this little kid, is almost how it was worded, at Brandon High School, knows how to fly airplanes now. So at that point, as I graduated high school, I said, well, I'm going to fly for Delta Airlines. Now, growing up in the South, we flew Delta everywhere, and the joke was that on your way to heaven, you go through Atlanta, because Delta Airlines, their main hub is in Atlanta, and so Delta was really the airline that I was most familiar with, and so I kind of set that as my goal. So Delta State University had the only 4-year aviation program in the state of Mississippi, and I was fortunate enough to actually earn a full band scholarship as well. I played baritone sax, so my college was paid for, at least on the non-flight lab side of things, tuition and room and board. But I started working on my instrument rating that first semester of my freshman year, and really, a couple of things happened to me that first semester. One of the things, I signed up for 19 hours, my first semester of college, which was a mistake, especially when one of those hours was marching band, and we met 18 hours a week or something crazy. We were always on the marching field practicing. It's football season, right? So I was practically 35, 40 hours a week just in class on the marching field, really, and flying too, right? And for the flight majors out there, you understand it's a challenging major, and not only are you pursuing a college degree, but you're also learning how to fly aircraft. So Started going down that road, overloaded myself, and I remember I would get to a point where I would lay down to go to sleep at night, and my heart was beating just like I was running down the street. I mean, it would not slow down. Like, my heart rate was just, I was like so amped up. And this is long before Red Bull and long before the days of any of the energy drinks. So, you know, Coke and, you know, Mountain Dew maybe would be about it, right? And I didn't even drink coffee. But I went to the student health center at the university because I was really concerned that, you know, something's happening to me. I'm going to, like, stroke out or what's going on. And I'll never forget the first question they asked me: have you been drinking any caffeine? And I'm like, okay, so I guess I need to quit drinking caffeine. But, of course, that was just a small piece of it. Mostly I had just overloaded myself. So I took a step back, and I really was forced to take a step back to reevaluate a little bit. And this was like toward the end of my first semester as a college freshman. Not only that, but my mom called me and said that after 26 years, my parents were getting a divorce. So I had that news as well. And I really took a little time to, like, you know, what am I doing? Where do I want to go with this? Everything, it's not really working out right now. So I still loved aviation. Aviation was in my blood, but I kind of decided maybe I don't want to fly for a living. Maybe I don't want to be a pilot. Again, it's a demanding major, and I had to do all the band stuff to get my tuition paid because I was on a full band scholarship. So to you know, shed some of the workload, I guess, I switched my major from flight over to aviation management, which I didn't know anything about. Aviation management, you know, taking courses in airport management, airline management, that sort of thing. And I continued down that road. I was fortunate enough to have a one-year flight coordinator internship at FedEx my sophomore year. So I moved to Memphis. That was the first time out on my own. Moved to Memphis, found an apartment, worked 40 hours a week at FedEx, and pretty much took that year off from college. So I will say, you know, for those of you that are like, oh, I'd like to apply for Southwest Airlines internship, but I got to take a whole semester off. Believe me, you're going to graduate eventually anyways, and to have that industry experience is invaluable. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And actually, it only delayed my graduation by about a semester. And that year at FedEx was just tremendous. So finally graduated college, looking for, you know, next steps, and, you know, had learned, you know, going through this process of college and the 4 years I was at Delta State, that, you know, God does have a plan for our lives, but the key is, how do you tap into that? How do you understand what His plan is? In other words, you know, His purpose, right? In Cal Baptist CBU, you know, live your purpose. So what does that mean? Whose purpose? How do we figure out that purpose? And I personally feel that it's God's purpose for our lives. We each have unique talents. We have unique strengths, and He wants to use us. He wants to use us to glorify Him. To spread and advance his kingdom, right? To share the good news. So honestly, as I was nearing the end of college, I started thinking, okay, so maybe God does have a plan for me, and maybe I need to try to tap into that. So I started saying a prayer, and here I am, 43, and still saying this prayer. But my prayer became, and it was really based on Jeremiah 29:11. You know, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. So my prayer became, God, you know, please open and close doors in my life according to your will for my life. I have seen many people that get very stressed because they're applying for a job and they have to get this job, and it's like, this is the job for me, I have to get it, and they don't get it, and it's like their world falls apart. But when you adopt that attitude that God's will is best, and if your prayer is that His will is done, then if you don't get a job, that job was not for you. It was not meant to be. Maybe you would be miserable in that position. Maybe you would have a supervisor that's really difficult to work with. And so adopting that mindset where God knows best, and you want to be in His will, and you want Him to lead and Him to open and close doors. And of course, closing a door is, in essence, you would not get a job offer. Opening a door, maybe that means you do get a job offer. But occasionally, maybe you have a couple of doors that are opened. And how does that work, right? So I'll share with you a little bit about that in a minute. But I ended up going to graduate school at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois, mainly because I couldn't find a job. And my mom encouraged me. She says, yeah, you better apply to some graduate schools just in case you can't find any work. I had a 4-year degree in aviation management. The only job offer I received was for a ticket agent with American Eagle, not even AMR Corp, but American Eagle, making minimum wage at Jackson Municipal Airport. And I'm thinking, so I got 4 years of college to earn minimum wage? It's like, nah, probably not. So I pursued the graduate degree, the master's degree at SIU in Carbondale, Illinois. And toward the completion of that program, they actually require that you do an internship. And at that point, I was really into airport management and aviation management and airport funding. And I wrote not my dissertation, but my master's thesis on airport funding, and was really interested in airports and capital development of airports and that sort of thing. So I applied to various internships, airport internships that I could find. One of those was at Tampa, Florida, Tampa International Airport. I remember getting the phone call that they wanted me to come down and interview, but since it was for an internship, they wanted me to pay my own way and hotel and airfare and all that. And so I said, well, since I'm going to be responsible for paying my way down there, can you give me some idea of kind of like what the odds are here? She said, well, we had 196 applications for 2 positions, and we're inviting 12 people down to interview. I said, wow, 12 people for 2 positions, that's a 1 in 6 shot, and it started with 196 applications. I said, those are pretty good odds. I said, I'll take that. So bought a Southwest ticket and reserved a room and flew down there, had my interview. It went great. They made me a job offer. So I started at Tampa International Airport as an airport operations specialist in July of '96. So I'm in this position and working really my first job after graduation, and it is an opportunity for me to continue to try to be in God's will, right? And so I continued every day to pray that God would give me the strength, energy, and wisdom. That was kind of my everyday prayer, right? As you're reporting to work at the airport and you don't really know what's going to happen that day. But also that He would open and close doors according to His will. So fast forward about 10 years, I met the chair of the aerospace department at Middle Tennessee State University at a conference. He found out I was working at the airport. I had started working on my PhD, and he said, we need to keep in touch. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? Well, about a month later, he emailed me, and they had an opening for a faculty position at MTSU, and he asked me to apply for that. And I talked to my wife. I had been on shift work for 10 years, weekends, midnights, holidays. The aviation industry is 24/7. And so, you get to a certain point that you may want to shift gears slightly. So we decided that I would apply for that position. Had a great interview, had to do a teaching demonstration, which I had never really done before, but received an offer and accepted that. So I started at MTSU in August of 2006. About 3 years into that, I was kind of looking for other opportunities, other I guess ways to advance in higher education or airports, quite frankly. In 2011, I was really kind of heavy into the job search, trying to figure out where I could go. I applied for a faculty position at FIT, Florida Institute of Technology. I applied for a department chair position at University of Nebraska Omaha. Their director is what they call it of their Aviation Institute. I applied for a faculty position at Arizona State University, and I found this opportunity at CBU, and I applied for this position as founding chair of the Aviation Science Department at CBU. I went on 4 interviews. I got an interview for all 4 of those. And be careful what you pray for, be careful what you wish for, because when you're presented with multiple opportunities, it's very difficult to make that decision. I'm going to share one thing with you as I close out today. But at University of Nebraska Omaha, I flew out there. I met with one of the faculty members the evening before my interview, and he told me to my face, he said, "This is your job to lose." And I was kind of like, okay. And his point was that they had my name at the top of the list. Like, I really had to mess this up for me not to get a job offer. It's in Omaha, Nebraska. My wife wasn't too keen in moving to Omaha, Nebraska. She's a southern girl, right? Grew up in Florida, and Omaha can get a little cool. But I said, hey, if this is where God wants us to be. So I started, praying again that God would open and close doors according to His will for my life. But based on what he said, and honestly based on my performance during the interview, and it was an all-day interview. I'm meeting with the deans and the vice presidents, and there was a student session and teaching demonstration. I mean, it was a full day on campus in Omaha. But I had been praying this prayer that God would open and close doors. Well, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to get a job offer out of this. because they've told me I'm at the top of the list, and I did really well during my interview. So then we're going to have to make a decision. Do we go CBU? Do we go Arizona State? Do we go Omaha? But the most interesting thing happened as I was continuing to pray that God would open and close doors according to His will. I got a call about 2 weeks later from Omaha, from the director of the search committee, and he said, you know, I don't know how to tell you this. I don't know how to explain this to you. And I was kind of like, I'm waiting on a job offer at this point, right? Because I was at the top of the list and I did really well during my interview. And even though I had been praying that God would open and close doors, I'm like, well, clearly this door is going to be wide open. The director of the search committee, and I remember this like it was yesterday, told me, we have made a decision not to fill the position at this time. And looking back on that, I tell myself and my wife, we both agreed that that was the only way that God could close that door. That was the only way that God could close that door, for them not to fill the position. I mean, who ever heard of having a position that you need to fill, you've got some good quality candidates, and then you just decide, no, we're not going to fill the position after all, right? But that was God slamming that door closed, really in my face. Because as far as I was concerned, that door was open, and it was going to stay open, and I was going to get a job offer. So when you pray that God's will is done and that He'll open and close doors, He literally will do that. And He did close that door in Omaha and yet opened the door at CBU wide open. And we really felt God's calling on us, on me, to be at CBU, to develop this program. This is much bigger than just writing curriculum and recruiting students. I mean, those of you who are returning students and even the new students will know, if you don't already, this is a very unique environment here at CBU, and everything that we do is really Christ-centered. We do what we do with excellence, and we're teaching you how to fly aircraft, and we're teaching you how to manage airports, and we're teaching you how to dispatch. But at the end of the day, we are preparing you to go out in this world and make a difference for His kingdom in your respective roles in the aviation industry, and that's really what it's all about. So I welcome any of you to my office at any time. Doors open. Chat with me. We've got a great staff. We've got a great team here, great faculty, and we're really here to see you succeed and to support you. And I am very proud of what we have developed here, and I thank you guys for placing your confidence in us. It's going to be another great year. So have a great year. And again, if you need anything, just please let us know. Thanks.